All right, good morning. And greetings from South Georgia, USA, on a beautiful morning of June the 29th, 2024. We're out here early this morning. We had much needed rain yesterday, and it was enough to completely water everything. The pastures, I'm quite sure we got enough rain that it went down to the bottom of the roots of the grass, and the trees were certainly glad for it. I think the sky is not quite sure. It's so early. I don't think there's any clouds in the sky. Probably going to be hot today. There's one of the new fawns right there. I don't see the other one yet. Well, as far as the news is concerned, there's an awful lot of stuff going on out there that may or may not be true, because we know that many lies are being told by those that are in power, those that control the world. And it's hard to tell the truth from a lie, honestly. You know, they can say this or that happened somewhere, but if we're not there, how do we know it really happened? We just don't know. Somebody can say that some person was arrested and taken to Guantanamo Bay, some high official. I don't have any way of knowing if it's true or false. I'm not, if I was the next door neighbor of that person, maybe I could notice that he wasn't coming home at night. We just don't know what's really going on. So I would say that if you're a person that keeps up with world events and the news and local events, you listen to it and just listen to it and see and admit that you're not sure about things. Unless it happens in your town or something, you're not really going to know what the truth is. And they have control of the media, certain parts of the media. And so even if somebody tells the truth about what really happened, that doesn't mean it's going to make it to your ears, because they have the ability to censor people. They have the ability to take somebody's voice away from them. They can take your YouTube voice away if they don't like what you're saying. So we can't know absolutely what's going on. I just say be relaxed with it. You just don't know. But there is a truth out there. In my opinion. And Jesus Christ is the truth. You can look past all of the worldly events. I just say, okay, maybe it's true and maybe it's not, but I can't tell for sure unless it happened to me or happened right within my knowledge. I don't know whether it's true or not. But today, what I want to talk about is forgiveness. I say that forgiveness and understanding what forgiveness is, understanding why we should forgive, I will say is the backbone of the Christian belief. In the Lord's Prayer, I say we make a pact or a contract with Jesus, a verbal contract, when we say or ask Jesus, forgive us our trespasses as we forgive those who trespass against us. I'll put it another way. We're asking Jesus to forgive us our trespasses, which are many and which occur every day, in the same manner that we forgive those who trespass against us. Make no mistake about this. Jesus made his forgiveness of us contingent upon our willingness to forgive others who have hurt our feelings, essentially, and maybe hurt our person, maybe stolen from us, hurt our finances. Well, our trespasses against God trespass the holy law. And the holy law has been abbreviated by Jesus into one saying, do unto others as you would have them do unto you. Treat people in the same manner as you would like to be treated. And the fact of the matter is that we do not do that. And certainly in the past we were not doing that. We did not treat people in the same way that we would like to be treated because we were wanting to do something else. So we are guilty of breaking God's holy law, which is to treat people the same way that we would expect to be treated. Now, I watched a little thing on Jim Carrey this morning, and I was aware that Jim Carrey had been making statements and had changed his life into a way that could be considered to be a believer in Jesus, Yeshua the Messiah. I want to tell you what Jim Carrey said in one of the interviews. He said, and I am paraphrasing this, you can go through the gate of resentment or the gate of forgiveness, or you can go down the road of resentment or the road of forgiveness. The road of resentment and unforgiveness is the broad path that leads to destruction. And the road of forgiveness is the road that leads to eternal life, which is not destruction. And Jesus said that those roads that most people are going to continue to go down the road of unforgiveness. That is the road that leads to destruction, the broad path. That's why he says most people go down it. So Jesus told us to forgive others in the same way that he had forgiven us. And he also made clear that if we did not forgive others, that we would not be forgiven. Okay, so yes, we need to forgive people. Possibly easier said than done. This is a big hurdle for us. And the reason is that we are fleshly beings, we are animals, and our nature is animalistic. Animals know nothing about forgiveness. They know nothing about treating each other well. They will fight each other over food. And when these stags, when we get into the rut season, you'll find out that they try to kill each other over the females. Well, does that remind you of humans? Yes, it does. Humans do the same thing. Now, we know it's wrong because we've been taught. God gave his holy law, and I guess even wrote it in our heart that we shouldn't do certain things. But because of our animalistic nature, we continue to do them. We push back when we are pushed. Animals do the same thing. These deer out here are going to, when they shed their velvet from their antlers, they're going to start pushing at each other with the intent to disable the other one, and they often kill each other with these wicked antlers that they have growing out of their head, and they pass their genetics along to the next generation. That is the way of the flesh, of which we are. But we also have the capacity to understand and reason and use logic. So people that have seen that there is a higher law seek to get those principles into the human social behavior. That's why we have laws that were given by God. That's why we have police to try to stop people from hurting each other. That's why we have governments. And they try to regulate and enforce moral behavior. But of course, they don't succeed. A well-run government does a pretty good job. Those principles came from God, but they are not our nature. Now, I've told you that in order to go down that narrow path to the kingdom of heaven, the gate that leads to heaven, you have to forgive. Now, I'm going to tell you how to forgive. The easiest way to forgive is to understand that we are animals, but we are higher animals. and that we have no right to hold grudges against people that do things to us, because we also do things to other people. So the old saying, the pot calling the kettle black. We have no standing to do that. When we judge others and refuse forgiveness to others, we are standing on very slippery ground. But yet we do it because we don't understand why. We have no standing to do that. Now, what I'm thinking about is this. If a dog bites you, let's say that you walk up to somebody's house and the dog comes out and appears to be friendly a little bit, and you reach down to pet him and he bites your hand. Well, of course, you get away from the dog. But you do not have a grudge against that dog, because you understand that that dog is an animal and that that dog was acting within his nature. The dog's nature was to and is to protect its territory, their yard, for example. So what do? Well, you back away from the dog and you don't stick your hand down there anymore. But you don't go home and let a grudge fester against the dog, because you know that the dog, it was only doing what comes naturally to him. So your way of dealing with it is to say, hey, I'm not going to walk up and stick my hand down there and try to pet that dog anymore. Now, if we would think about humans in the same way, we would say, I went up to that person and they wronged me. Whatever the wrong was, they're probably not going to bite your hand, but they will do something. They may do something. They may say something to you. They may insult you in some way to hurt your feelings. They may physically harm you, pull out a stick and beat you with it. Why should you think of them any different than the dog? Because we have an unrealistic expectation that everyone should treat us with respect. That's not true. To think that everyone should treat us with respect is an unrealistic expectation. Any more than we should think that every dog should lick our hand instead of biting us. Now, when we reached down to pet that dog, that's what we thought. We were going to pet that dog on the head and the dog might lick our hand, but the dog bit us. And we learned quickly not to stick our hand down there. I'll tell you a story about that, about a dog doing that very thing. When I was a kid, we raised Dalmatian dogs. That was we had a couple of Dalmatians and we raised puppies on them, and my dad sold those puppies. And we had one very nice female dog, Her name was Daphne. My dad liked to name the dogs after God. We only had females, goddesses. Pandora was our first one, and then Daphne was her daughter. Well, we were at the city dump one day. We drove out there. Back in those days, you had to take your stuff to the city dump and put it out, your trash and all. And we were sitting in the station wagon, and Daphne was in there with us, probably in the back seat, behind the driver's seat. And a man walked over to the window, and he was telling us about something that had been thrown away that had some value to it. I don't know what it was, a TV or something. And he came over and he was getting near the window, and he said, "There's a real nice whatever it is over there. You guys might want it." And the dog showed no signs of being antagonistic. Daphne didn't. She was being her normal self, no barking, no nothing. And then the man reached down with his face closer to the window to talk to us. And when he got to a certain point, Daphne quickly reached out and bit him in the cheek and laid open a pretty good gash, or a piece of flesh, on his cheek. That's all she did. Well, she was conflicted. She was protecting the territory of the vehicle that we were in. She knew the man wasn't threatening, but yet he approached. She only did what nature told her to do. She could not stop. And of course, we were horrified. The man had a piece of flesh hanging off of his cheek, profusely bleeding, got out his handkerchief and daubed it. And we were apologizing, and my dad was apologizing, and the man said, "Don't worry about it, don't worry about it. I shouldn't have done that." And he did not get mad or hold a grudge against Daphne, the Dalmatian. And she let it go after that too. She warned him quickly, "Hey, you don't stick your head in the car with my people." So if we can look at each other the same way, it is our animal nature to fight back, to push back, to bite people on the hand, to steal things from them, to fight over women, to try to get a lot of money so that we can rule over them, much like these stags attempt to rule over a harem of does, or hinds, as they call them in the red deer world. So when somebody wrongs us, we can forgive them if we think about them as just being an animal. No, they shouldn't have done it, because we are higher animals and we have been told right from wrong. That doesn't mean we're going to do it. Now I want to remind you of what Jesus said very shortly before he died on the cross. He said, "Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do." Well, that should be our attitude when somebody wrongs us. And Jesus will also forgive us when we do that. The trouble comes when we expect to be well treated by other human animals. That expectation is unrealistic. Even in families, that doesn't happen. Family members mistreat each other and push back against each other. Now, when the dog bites you, you would be pretty foolish to stick your hand down there again. And when a human being bites you by doing things to you that hurt your feelings, you don't have to go and subject yourself to it anymore. Forgiveness doesn't mean go back in for second helpings. So I'm going to say that forgiveness, that's what Jesus did for us. His name means salvation, Yeshua. He saves us by forgiving us our trespasses as we forgive those who trespass against us. The little new deer is climbing the little pile of rocks, enjoying his new life here on earth. Now, I would venture to say that since our forgiveness for God's trespasses is contingent upon us forgiving others, this is just my opinion, I believe that there would have been people in all civilizations and in all times that understood that principle of forgiveness, even if they never heard of Jesus. And I believe that they would have been forgiven by Jesus. So that answers the questions that people have about what would happen to people who never heard of Jesus. Are they going to go to hell? I believe that God, through His Spirit, has informed all people of right and wrong. And it is my belief that it was known in all civilizations. So my guess is that even in the cannibal religions where they ate each other, there were probably people there that knew it wasn't right to eat each other, because they might have thought, hey, how would I like them to be carving my body up and eating it? That's just my opinion, because I know God is a merciful God and God is a good God. But we certainly have no excuse these days. We have heard of Jesus, and we have heard what He instructed us to do, and that was to forgive those who trespass against us and treat others as we would want to be treated. That is the Christian teaching that I believe is the backbone. If you're going down that road of resentment and unforgiveness, I can tell you this, you don't have any peace, because all you want to do is think about how people treated you. I know a woman who claims and says that she's a Christian, but almost every time that I encounter that woman, the conversation quickly goes back to how somebody in her past childhood had molested her. I'm not saying that person's not saved, but I'm saying that that shows an immaturity in the Christian way. Because we should put those things away. They should bother us less and less as we realize that we must forgive. In the same way that we don't hold resentment against the dog that bites your hand, we know it's an animal. Now, those that have trespassed against us, it'll come back up from time to time. And very quickly you should begin to be able to say, I have forgiven that person already. Get behind me, Satan. I don't want to think about that anymore. This has been taken care of by Jesus. Many times those people that have done those things to us are no longer living. Can you imagine spending your time worrying about something that happened to you for a person that is no longer alive? What a waste of your time. I'd say that it gives you illness in both mind and body to do those things. So let's say the Lord's Prayer right now and pay particular attention to the part about forgive us our trespasses in the same way that we forgive those who trespass against us. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses as we forgive those who trespass against us. Lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory forever. Amen.